About 8 years ago, we kind of looked over the table at each other and asked, well, how come we can't make an organic fertilizer that rivals the effectiveness and the cost of synthetic nitrogen,
Hmm.
like urea, ammonium sulfate, UCAN 32. And our chief science officer at the time looked at me and said, oh, there's no way. Impossible. It's not going to happen. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? That's your whole job now. You shouldn't have said that to me. And so we spent 8 years testing over 30 different materials. And today we are in our fourth stage of pilot plant. We started with a gram in a lab. We went to a beaker. We went to 1,000 gallons. And now we're about to produce 6,000 gallons a week of this brand new patented material that we designed specifically to replace synthetic nitrogen.
All right, Chaz. So that red light came on. This is high pressure podcasting. How do you feel? Do you want to go forward? Do you feel okay?
I'm good, buddy. Let's keep going.
Yeah, he's good. All right, all right. Well, let's actually really get into the the old podcast here. Let's start with. I love starting with what's your 90-second pitch? Who are you, and what does your company do?
My name is Chaz Berman, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my eighth business venture. The first seven, I produced some pretty handsome returns for my investor. My biggest claim to fame is I took a company public called MyPoints.com that reached $2.5 billion in market cap. Along the way, I ran into some folks that were in the ag business, and they had a really interesting material. So I started with them. The name of the company is Grower Secret, and we've been producing organic materials for organic farming for many years. And about 8 years ago, we kind of looked over the table at each other and asked, well, how come we can't make an organic fertilizer that rivals the effectiveness and the cost of synthetic nitrogen, like urea, ammonium sulfate, UCAN 32. And our chief science officer at the time looked at me and said, oh, there's no way. Impossible. It's not going to happen. I'm like, okay, well, guess what? That's your whole job now. You shouldn't have said that to me. And so we spent 8 years testing over 30 different materials. And today we are in our fourth stage of pilot plant. We started with a gram in a lab. We went to a beaker. We went to 1,000 gallons. And now we're about to produce 6,000 gallons a week of this brand new patented material that we designed specifically to replace synthetic nitrogen. You may know that synthetic nitrogen is a $134 billion annual business used on about 570 million farms worldwide. The problem is that 50% of it leaches through the soil into the streams, rivers, and oceans and into our drinking water. And
Yikes.
although it did a lot of good because over the last 80 years it fed a lot more people, the unintended
Mm-hmm.
consequence is that we've actually poisoned our environment. And a lot of people don't talk about it. A lot of people don't know about it, but it is pervasive and it's terrible. It's an environmental disaster. And so, I've been very fortunate in my life. And so I decided, gee, if I could come up with something that would repair the earth, that would be a really good thing. And so that's what we've done. And this material
That's cool.
is completely organic. It's food for the soil. It doesn't leach at all, and it comes out at about the same cost. I mean, you may
Wow.
you may know this. Farmers have kind of a dilemma today. So they know exactly what they're doing to their soil. If you've ever been to a conventional farm, it's all hard pack. It has this chemical smell to it. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you go to an organic farm, you can virtually thrust your arm down to your elbow in humus, and there's a beautiful earth smell. And so they know exactly what they're doing, but they don't really have a choice because if they want to carry on their legacy, they want to provide for their family, they have to use the least expensive material available. And so many that we talk to, they're like, hey, hurry up, Chaz. Come on, man, let's go. We want it. We want it. We need it. And so we are raising money on Start Engine today in a crowdfunding campaign to begin the process of moving from our pilot plant to our commercial scale plant, which will produce 7 million gallons of this product. We've identified a piece of property in Kingman, Arizona, in an industrial center. Has rail access, low humidity, great community, really friendly business climate. And so we're pretty excited to move to the next level and build this plant. And then from there, probably going to take more time than I have to be as the CEO, but this is probably a 20-year project to
Right.
replace all of this synthetic nitrogen. But it
So that was going to be one of my questions: is how do you sort of plan out for it, and maybe an investor to think about, like, what does a timetable typically look like when you're bringing in such a new product to market like this, and trying to get farmers to change minds? And I don't even know what the approval processes look like. Maybe FDA. I don't know if that's involved or not. If you're at ground zero, how do you sort of think about this stuff if you're thinking about like investing in something like this?
Yeah, you know what? These are really good questions and questions that we have really spent a lot of time considering and thinking about. So the material that we produced is not dissimilar to a material that we've been selling for 14 years. So it's different and it's better, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
that different. And so we're really
Mm,
familiar with the registration process. It does not need to go through the FDA.
okay.
It needs to go through a couple of vetting organizations in California. It's called the California Department of Food and Agriculture. And then
Right.
there's a
Okay.
national organization called OMRI, the Organic Materials Research Institute up in Portland. And so we need to get approval from them, but it is a completely organic material. And certainly they're going to have to look at the manufacturing process. It is considered a high nitrogen material. So there's additional fees because of that. But we don't foresee any issue on the registration side of it. And then in terms of a liquidity event or an exit, our plan is to build this first plant and prove that we can build it to commercial scale and bring it in at the
Mm-hmm.
cost we need to bring it in at. And then we plan to have a liquidity event at that point. So
Gotcha.
the liquidity
Okay.
event will probably happen in 2027, 28.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it's going to have to be the then board who decides how to move this product globally. It
Mm-hmm.
obviously
Right.
is going to require a lot more building of plants, partnering with companies that have much deeper pockets.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And is this specific crops that this works best in? Is it all crops? Is it certain regions, areas? What does it kind of look like for the
it's
farmer?
another really good question. As you know, nitrogen is required by every single crop. For example, there are 279 crops grown in California. Every single one of them requires supplemental nitrogen to bring them to full yield. And so this is a nitrogen product. And so pretty much anything that you plant that you want to produce food from is going to need nitrogen. And so this product will service all of those crops and all of the acres. What's nice about it, though, is it has a few properties that synthetic nitrogen does not have. It's really good in cool climates or in very hot climates, whereas synthetic nitrogen doesn't work really well in early spring application because it's too cold. And in the middle of
Gotcha.
summer, when you got to spray something out of an airplane, there's a lot of burning that can take place from synthetic nitrogen. Whereas we've sprayed this material on rice in the Central Valley of California when it's been 104 degrees, not any burning at all. Now, it's a spectacular product, and the most important
Yeah.
thing is that it's going to help Mother Earth take a break and allow it to repair itself. The earth is incredibly regenerative. And so we're just looking to get this material out on as many farms as possible and stop the poisoning of our planet.
Yeah. Has there been any like surprising thing to you that you might have seen in a trial or in some of the testing that you've done so far where, maybe maybe something jumped off the charts where you're like, I didn't expect that. Has there been any stories like that at all?
That's another really good, really good question. So, what we do find is that even when we take this material and we combine it with synthetic nitrogen, we get a good result also. So, not a better result, but a really good result. So the reason this occurs is because, as you're probably familiar with, amino acids are the building blocks of life. They're the building blocks of protein. And so in a plant, what a plant has to do is it takes the available nitrogen from the soil. And if it's synthetic nitrogen, it has to convert that into amino acids, taking time and taking energy. This material is 80% amino acids when we apply it to the plant. So whether you
Hmm.
apply it in
Okay.
a drench or foliarly onto the leaves, there's immediate uptake. So the plant does not have to spend its time and energy converting it into an amino acid. It's already there. And especially when you spray it on the leaves, that's where the tissue production actually takes place. And so it's right in the right place, right where the plant needs it.
Wow, that's interesting. What? Yeah, that's actually fascinating. I, was just kind of putting that together in my own mind there. Of like, what's happening in the science side of that equation. How do you guys go about patenting this and having the IP? Is it something that already was happening 14 years ago, or I mean, is it something that's happening now? Just how do you guys protect what you guys are doing right now?
So as you know, patents are great to have. They're different
Hmm.
types of patents, right?
Yeah.
And so this product, of course, we started with a provisional patent. And then a year later, we made adjustments based on what we saw and what we discovered from our data. And we updated it and filed a utility patent. And we've
Okay.
applied for and are ready to have patents worldwide in 132 countries. But at the end of the day, we're kind of a small speck of sand on the beach.
Mm. Hey, there we are. So your
Sorry,
call came in.
you were right. That was a phone call.
Yep. Yep.
So
So
let
it
me,
should start picking up recording there, and then I'll just chop this. We'll edit
yeah,
this down
I'll go
and
back.
post. Yep.
So, we set up our provisional patents, and then about a year later, we made adjustments based on the data, and we filed utility patents. We also have applied for worldwide patents in 132 countries. But the issue is that we're a small speck of sand on the beach, and that if you're dealing with floors and floors of attorneys and PhDs, you know, these patents will work more as a stop sign to let people look at it and realize that we took a very careful look at the prior art and that it's
Hmm.
going to be really, really difficult for them to get around our creation.
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And the
Right.
hope is that what they'll do is they'll look at it and they'll go, you know what? Do we spend a god awful lot of money trying to sue them and to figure it out and get into lawsuits? Or we just go to them and partner or acquire or
Right.
merge, right?
Yeah.
So,
Right.
I mean, at the end of the day, most business people are rational and they're
Hmm.
rational actors. And so,
Yep.
the economics will rule that decision.
Right. Right. And would you ever would you see yourself having more licensing deals, or would it just be buying from you? Would it be more of that type of business model at the end of the day?
Actually, that's really interesting that you asked that question because from the beginning, I've thought that the company could actually one day be operated from a single office with one CPA and one light and his little green visor. And all he did was collect the money because of all the licensing deals we did.
Right.
Okay, I'm being facetious, but
Yeah. Right.
yeah, I think that the idea of licensing not only the technology and the use of the patents, but there is a whole new process to make this material that we have worked out, specific pieces of equipment that make it a lot more efficient, faster, and more efficacious than the way it was produced earlier. And so that all can be bound up in a license and licensed to much larger companies, which is exactly what our intent is.
Gotcha. Is there partnerships or regions that would really help push you guys along farther outside of raising capital and just would there be something that you could see in the future around something like between those two things at all in your future?
So, the material is universal.
Hmm.
So it could be partners from literally any country or any region in the world.
Okay.
Okay. But, we're a little prejudiced. We're US based.
Hmm.
And so we'd like to see us get involved with some US companies. We have great relationship with some of the larger U.S. distributors and manufacturers like
Okay.
Wilbur Ellis, Helena, Simplot,
Mm-hmm.
and, a company that we just all incredibly admire because of what they've done in our business is Nutrien.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so we haven't had a discussion with them yet, but we certainly would like to in the future.
Yeah. What's one thing maybe in your mind that you think investors might be underestimating on the fertilizer space in general? Are there pockets that you're seeing, or just maybe something that people might not be aware of, just in this industry alone, if people aren't familiar with it?
So,
Yeah, you should be back if you hung up. Yeah, it should be good now. Yeah, there you go. Yep.
wow, even though I blocked the call. So that is a very complex question.
Mhm.
Could you narrow it down for me maybe a little bit?
Yeah, I guess just if we're going after retail investors and they don't know the fertilizer space, they've never really looked at it. They might be hearing this and going, "Yeah, everybody's going to need this," right? Maybe it's as it's as shallow as that thought pattern. So I guess just what could they be thinking about? Like what questions should they be asking? What does this industry kind of look like? Again, I'm just imagining that that a lot of people listening to this have never really thought about fertilizer as an investment opportunity at this stage of their life.
Sure. Oh, and that's
Yeah.
totally understandable.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that I actually ended up in the ag business, much as
Right.
loving it as much as I do. Yeah, so I would suggest that first of all, this investment is not hard to understand. And so what I mean by that is if you're an investor today, any kind of investor, and you look at what you're being hit with, it is always something that is really extraordinarily complex.
Hmm.
You want to be at the peak of the wave. You're looking at AI and you're looking at blockchain and you're looking at crypto. And, you may nod that you understand how it all works, but really, it is really difficult to understand all that. And, Warren Buffett used to he did finally invest in tech, but before that, he would invest in things like tags that go on cattle's ears.
Right.
And John Lynch famously said, the simpler, the better, the easier to understand, the better investment. Even the name needs to be simple. And what I would
Right.
suggest is what's simpler than organic nitrogen? So, first of all, the investment is really easy to understand. And secondly, everybody wants to serve their families, their pets, safe
Hmm.
food. Everybody's
Yeah.
got to eat. And the problem is synthetic nitrogen has poisoned the environment.
Yeah.
And so this is
Yeah.
why there's such a race to eat healthier, regenerative, sustainable products.
Do you see a country or a region jumping on maybe potentially faster than the United States, just maybe because of our political climate, our, just kind of what the temperature is like? Do you see a Europe, jumping on first, or somewhere else, maybe in your roadmap at all, or any research you might have done?
So there's no question that Europe is definitely sort of leads the way in managing chemicals that go in their soil and
Hmm.
in healthy foods. And you and I could get into a long-winded conversation about genetically modified and CRISPR technology and all that. But in a lot of parts of Europe, you're not allowed to genetically modify anything, right? Especially
Yeah.
France, right?
Right.
And so, unfortunately, that train has kind of left the station. And if we went back to the way agriculture was done 100 years ago, a lot of people wouldn't be able to eat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, without arguing that point, I would say that definitely Europe leads the way in terms of wanting to use healthier products. But there isn't a farmer around the world that doesn't understand this problem.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's just such a simple thing. They just put the synthetic nitrogen, the poison on their soil, and they can smell it and they can feel it and they can see what it does. So they're
Yeah.
looking for an alternative. They're looking for an
Hmm.
alternative. And just because this happens to be an organic nitrogen Doesn't mean they need to have their farm certified organic, doesn't mean that they need to do anything differently
Right.
other than just replace the synthetic nitrogen and keep going. And what's nice is there is a de minimis switching cost. So there's no special equipment needed. They have all the
Hmm.
application equipment they need. They have the tanks to store it. So it's going to be nothing new to farmers. It's just going to be a simple, I'm buying this instead of this.
Wow. How did we get to synthetic nitrogen? Like, where did it come from? Is it just feeding at volume, something like that at some point in
No,
time?
it's a
How did this
really
get
interesting
plugged into
question.
the system?
After World War One, a lot of the factories that were producing ammunition and bombs wanted to keep their employees employed and they wanted to continue making profits. And so the Germans created something called the Haber-Bosch process, which is the process that's used to, extract ammonia and produce fertilizer. Okay.
Wow.
And so, it was a huge boom, and then it even expanded more after World War II. And as the
Mm,
population grew, it supported huge growth in human populations around the world. It was, the
mm,
Green Revolution was a great thing for our world. Okay.
yeah.
But unfortunately, the Great Generation and even our generation kind of turned their head to what was really happening when using that product. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, we're now left with the consequences of 80
Yeah.
years of dumping 173 million metric tons on our globe. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It's crazy. And it's
I
just an
mean,
environmental disaster.
yeah, it is too. I think I've heard. I grew up in a farmland, and I got out when I was 18. But just that the fact that like the soil, used to be however long down, far down, and then now it's literally like whatever, 12 inches, a foot down, where it used to be 8 foot, whatever it was. And that is exactly what you're talking about, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's just that over, you know, chemicals in, over farming, back to, and the crops just don't have the root systems like they used to. I mean, that's what I remember hearing at least a few times in my day of being a problem. That's really what we're talking about right now, right? It's just that soil is just bad now, right? It's just
Right.
not good
Well,
soil
that
at the end
that
of the day.
level of topsoil around the globe
Yeah.
has definitely been diminishing,
Hmm.
and that is what sustains all life on Earth.
Yeah.
And so that's the exciting part about this product is this product can replace all of the poison that's being used today for about the same price, so that farmer can continue doing what they've been doing, and it will over time allow the earth to come back to the vitality that it used to have.
Yeah. Oh, I want to talk for just a second. I've got two more questions and then we'll wrap up here. But you've been a CEO for a long time. We have a lot of listeners who are entrepreneurs or they're raising themselves. Maybe what's a lesson that you've learned in your history of just being a CEO, running companies, exiting them? Just, how do you sort of approach day to day and thinking about, not having too high, not having too low, having celebrating wins, not getting too discouraged. Just how do you sort of navigate just being a CEO, and maybe what's a trait that you've picked up and learned that you think other people should know?
So first of all, I think that a lot of it is a learned skill, but it takes a lot of determination and practice. So I would say the most important skill in being a CEO is patience because a lot of issues or problems that others think are monumental tend to just resolve themselves with a little bit of time. And the other good quality to develop is persistence. Persistence is pretty much the way I have managed to get to where
Yeah.
I am. I just don't let go. I have people that have written in my LinkedIn profile, I would be in any foxhole with Berman because he's the one that's going to be out there pulling the trigger forever. And I guess, the other thing that's really important is that you need to understand a little bit about finance and financial statements because they really are your roadmap. They're your
Yeah.
they're your na- they're your navigation, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's about it. I would say that selecting and finding people that are enthusiastic and believe in what you're doing is very important also. I mean, most of the people that work around me have been with me for 10 years or more. So they're very loyal, they're dedicated, and it's this mission-based business that I feel really attracted that kind of talent rather than actually me.
Yeah.
You know, we are dedicated. We have a mission to do something really good with our lives that can affect others.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I want to talk just for a little bit about, maybe fundraising goals, why you're thinking about Start Engine right now. It seems like you're on a big journey and fundraising is going to be a part of multiple different milestones. One campaign very rarely brings in all the dollars. So just walk us through, how are you thinking about fundraising? Maybe what some of the milestones are looking like, when you want to hit certain tranches, certain dates. Just what does that sort of look like? I think the campaign's fairly new, the Start Engine campaign. It's relatively new. So just kind of walk us through, what does fundraising look like for a business like this at the end of the day?
So, you know, any business needs working capital to function. So if we were just raising money for working capital, it would be a little different view.
Hmm.
However, we're trying to raise money to build a fairly significant manufacturing facility. And so we're starting it out with crowdsourcing. And one of the reasons that we decided to do that is because we have a lot of wonderful customers and vendors and others that have supported us for many years, and we wanted to give them a chance to own a piece of our company. We
Yeah.
just think we're onto something that one day can be very valuable. And so our first level goal, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, but only about 7% of the companies that actually start crowdfunding campaigns get to $1 million.
Well, I'm very familiar. I've been in the space 15 years. I wrote most of the rule book on it. So,
It
yeah.
was a little
Yeah.
surprising to me when I heard
Yep.
that, frankly.
Yep.
But that's a good thing, and so our first level goal is to surpass that, and we can raise up to $5 million in our campaign, and we're doing some really unique marketing processes to get that to happen. Which, if I divulged, one of my team would kill me, so I can't tell you exactly.
Okay.
And then after that, we intend to, for this particular project, we intend to go apply to the USDA for what is called a business and industry loan, which they will loan between nothing and $25 million.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what you do is you take that guarantee. It's called a rural loan guarantee. You take that guarantee and you go to some usual suspect banks. They're used to funding based on that guarantee.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then they fund you based on really favorable interest rates and a very
Nice.
long term, no interest payments for a while. And
Hmm.
that's what we would use to build the plant, the first plant,
Yeah.
to get to commercial scale. And then there are many paths that can be taken after that.
Right.
There may be an interest in building more of our own plants before we license. But
Mm-hmm.
once you do one, I'm not saying that it's easy to do the second one, but it's a lot
Right.
easier to do the
Yeah.
second one and to raise money
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
You know, this is way off in the future, and I'm
Yeah.
really just focused on getting the Start Engine campaign working so that we have a chance to look at that future in different ways.
That's great. Well, Chaz, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. This was a great conversation. I was excited to talk about it because, again, I love when I see kind of crowdfunding come together, good for the earth, a mission-based project, you know, just a good idea, an idea that, like, I always use this analogy. Would my mom get it? Her name's Cookie. I was like, would Cookie understand this? She would. All right, this is a good idea, right? We don't have to talk about a crypto token thing, I got to
Yeah.
explain that. So really, really cool stuff. So all my listeners out there, you guys have heard me before. I'll have all the links in the show notes. Please go check this out. Go over to the campaign. Just check it out. Dive in, and see if this is something that might fit your portfolio. But Chaz, again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. This was a really great conversation. Thanks so much for your time.
Hey, Jeff, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time also. And thanks to your listeners.